your audition for American Idol. One of the most viral auditions in the history of the show. You walk out there, then you do your audition. You tell them that you are adopted and you're searching for your family. And then you walk out to get your family and you realize who's there.
When I opened those doors, like none of that was staged. And it just felt like I had met them before and like known and loved them my whole life. It felt like a family reunion. And then when Katy asked me to sing like one of my birth mom songs, like I don't know who else gets that opportunity. So it felt like my birth mom kind of like orchestrated the whole thing for me in a way. It's definitely been a high since I got rid of all of my junk from the past.
McKenna, I think that the world knows you as this beautiful voiced, lovely young lady, but also at 19, you found yourself in a bit of a situation when you got around some of the wrong people.
I feel like all growing up, because of my voice and my musical talent, I was being formed into like a mold that I didn't want to be put into. So getting outside of that, I really enjoyed, and I honestly took it too far and realized that I'm an addict.
Yeah.
I was living with people for like a month and a half who were heroin addicts and meth addicts and cocaine addicts, and I had never like experienced that. Like, yes, I had dabbled in some of those drugs, which is
McKenna Faith Breinholt, welcome to the Rollercoaster Podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
We've tried to do this for a while, and so I'm happy that we're finally doing it after, I think a really positive experience generally that you had doing American Idol, and you're back from a recent voice surgery and you sound great. And so excited to have you in here.
Thank you.
McKenna, I think that the world probably knows you as this beautiful faced, beautiful voiced, lovely young lady. And I think that is true. But also at 19, a handful of years ago, I think you found yourself in a bit of a situation when you got around some of the wrong people. I want you to just share your story. I want you to describe kind of how that happened, how you got involved with some of these people, and then what that led to over the next couple of years.
Yeah. I think it all started with like a lack of self-confidence and a lack of self-love. Like I really didn't feel that in high school. Like I had the best friends in high school and the best life, but the one thing I lacked was self-confidence. And I think that just led me to like finding joy in substances and people that didn't love themselves either. And that is where I felt comfortable. So I want to say at 19, like that's when I started to really venture out and get outside of the bubble that I had lived in for so long and really experience what life was like not being forced into a specific mold. And I feel like all growing up, because of my voice and my musical talent, I was being formed into like a mold that I didn't want to be put into. So getting outside of that, I really enjoyed, and I honestly took it too far and realized that I'm an addict, and I really fell in love hard with the stuff that I was doing and didn't realize how much it was hurting me.
Yeah. How do you think that happens? I mean, if you look back, this always starts with just one moment, one experience, right? Somebody sticking their hand out and saying, check this out.
Yeah.
Try this thing, right? And I know for some, they can withstand. Others, they can actually try it and then still withstand. But then others, they try that and it becomes a slippery slope, right? So how do you think that happened for you?
For me, I think I had seeked it out for so long that it almost wasn't like offered to me. Like I just looked everywhere for it because the idea of it sounded very amusing and exciting. So when I did find it, I stayed there for so long. Like I stayed with that same group of people, did the same thing every single night, and that's all I looked forward to. And it honestly became like my number one priority every single day. It's all I looked forward to and all I planned for. And I eventually stopped working and spent everything I had just to get those feelings back every day. And it took like sacrificing my family and my friends and the people who really cared about me. Addiction is crazy because you really don't think about what other people are thinking around you or what you're doing to hurt them. Your frontal lobe just kind of goes black and you can't make those like moral decisions anymore. It's like fight or flight, and it became like something I needed to survive, I guess.
Do you have an experience early on where you got high at a level that you had never experienced before? And, what was that like after waking up and becoming sober? Like, what thoughts are going through your head after you have that first, like, material high experience?
The first good highs I had, I woke up obviously just wanting more and feeling really happy. But there were times that I overdid it and I woke up like in severe panic and regret, like feeling I needed to go to the hospital or just feeling like I needed to ask someone for help. And that's usually when I would, tell my mom and, open up to her about what was going on. And she would always listen to me and always help me and give me a second chance. But it got to the point where I was given so many chances that I was just asking to get kicked out. And so when I did, that's when I decided to live in my car, and the highs got worse, and I lost more and more money and lost more and more friends and lost God, honestly. That was probably my lowest moment.
Yeah. You had not much left except looking forward to the next high, basically. Yeah. Your parents, just for people to understand who they are, what are they like?
My parents are super hardworking and super driven and super faith-based. And they've always taught me to like get over hard things and like work through hard things. And I've had a great life growing up, but I felt like I couldn't really feel all of my emotions that I wanted to feel. Like I just always had to get over it and work through it really quick and move on and get back to work. But when I left, I felt like I was able to, grieve the way I wanted to grieve or not feel what I wanted to feel on my own terms. And my parents were always supportive. Like they went to every single tennis match that I played in, every single recital, every guitar lesson. And I look back and it makes me sad that I hurt them so badly for so many years because they are the best parents ever. Like I wouldn't take back being adopted for a second.
Yeah. The first time you told your mom or your dad, describe what that experience was like.
They were just sad. Like it was.
Was this in person? On the phone?
In person.
Yeah.
I was still living with them at the time when they first caught me. Like I never willingly opened up until it got bad.
Yeah.
But when they first caught me, it was just like disappointing. And it was heartbreaking because like I have little brothers who lived in the house and I would just do it in my room. And sometimes they would just I would wake up to them finding me passed out with something in my hand or just stuff in my bed. And that was always just like a big slap in the face of like a realization that I need to do better. And I never did. It took me so many years and it took getting kicked out over and over again to figure that out.
Yeah. I think there's, I had a guy on the show named Brad Jensen, who's known online as the sober bodybuilder. I'm sure you've come across him before.
I haven't.
Amazing guy. And I had interviewed people who had suffered from addiction in the past, but there are, levels to addiction. There's levels to everything. And, I think Brad had experienced a level that I didn't realize existed, right? Like I've never suffered from addiction in the way that you have, certainly in the way that Brad has, but I didn't realize that there was this level that was so low that it was like that rock bottom. He's like, it just kept getting lower. I could keep like digging through these rocks and digging and digging, and shared some of his experiences, living in his car, living on the street, like having literally no friends, having no hope except for the hope of being able to obtain the next hit. I mean, that was it, right? What's that like? I mean, what is that? You said like your frontal lobe is almost shut off, right? So I don't know that you're even contemplating what is happening when you're in those moments, right?
Yeah.
As you look back now, like what kind of feelings do you have as you think about that deep state of addiction that you were in, that you had gotten to?
I saw a video that like perfectly explains it, and it's of this like little duck, and it's walking along this path, and it sees this like glowing bubble, and it eats it, and then it flies super high, like really high, and the sky turns rainbow, and then it falls down, it lands on its feet, and it just keeps going again, sees it again, takes it, flies high, same rainbow, comes down again, sees it again. This time when he flies, it's not as high and there's not a rainbow. Falls and he stumbles, and then he sees another glowing bubble. Flies shorter distance in the air and then stumbles even harder. And then it gets to the point where this guy gets like super gloomy, and he's like trudging to the next bubble, still takes it, barely jumps, and just like falls on his face. And then he just keeps taking it till the sky gets like completely black. And that, when I saw that, I was like, that's exactly what addiction is like. It's like you don't notice like that you're hurting so bad. You just have to do it to survive at this point. And so you keep going until it is literally killing you, and everything is like vanishing around you. And that you really don't notice it until you are at your lowest, and there are levels to the rock bottoms. Like I've had so many different levels, and I could have more that are worse, but I know I'll never go back to that point. But it really took like rehab to help me learn about like what addiction is, like on a scientific level, and like really what's going on in my brain. And you have to treat it like it's a disease, like just like someone has cancer, or like someone has diabetes. Like you have to constantly care for it. And if you don't, like it can start acting up again, and it can get bad really quick.
Yeah.
So once I learned that, and once I saw people around me that had lost like so many people around them, and I was living with people for like a month and a half who were heroin addicts and meth addicts and cocaine addicts. And I had never like experienced that. Like, yes, I had dabbled in some of those drugs, which is a different story, but seeing their stories and seeing how their lives were impacted and their families were impacted really like woke me up and showed me that I can't be doing that anymore.
Yeah.
And even though I relapsed out of rehab, it has never been near as bad as what it was before then.
Yeah.
Because of the treatment that I've done and the work that I've put in.
Yeah. Do you have you talked about some of these just wake up call moments. Do you have one in particular that stands out that you want to share?
Yeah. this has happened like 2 or 3 times in my life now, and I'm not sure what this is, but I love talking about it and hearing people's perspectives. It's happened when I've been home alone. And I was home alone. My parents were out at a party. I was maybe 20, and I had just done meth for about 2 weeks. And I had come off of it randomly. I don't know how. I just stopped doing it. And I was clean for about 2 weeks from everything. And that night home alone, and I just start spiraling like out of nowhere, like terrible thoughts, like feeding myself horrible thoughts about myself, like my self-image, and just like, you're not worthy of anything, like you will never be enough, you're always going to be an addict, like you might as well just give up. And I'm listening to these thoughts and like believing them. And it's getting worse and worse to the point where I go into a panic attack, and everything around me is just like, it just seems like I'm in like a tornado of like darkness. And I call my mom and I'm like, when are you going to be home? Like, I am not okay right now. And they wouldn't be home for like another hour and a half. They were at a party in Scottsdale, and they were going to turn around and come home. There was traffic. And so I'm just like freaking out. And I hear this little voice in the back of my head say, go to Jeff's, which is a really close family friend of ours. He's older, so I don't know how he would be awake, but it's like 10 o'clock at night. And I'm just listening to that little voice over all of the loud voices that are in my head. And I just start driving to his house, and I'm like screaming the whole way there. Like, something's telling me don't go there, but I'm going there anyways, because there's just that little keep going. And so I just get out and I am banging on his door. The lights flip on, and him and his cute wife are just like hiding behind. And I just like spit out the words, like, I need you to pray for me right now. And he was like, come in, and just sat me on the couch and started praying for me. And at the end of the prayer, before he was finished, like super powerful words came out. And he didn't know what had happened, but he had told me like these specific words. And it was, if you do this again, you will become addicted. And I immediately like stopped crying, felt calm, looked up at him. He like just stood back and was like, I didn't say those things. Like, what did you do? And I just sat there and I told him everything that had happened. He was the first person I had told, and he had shared with me that he had lost a few nephews to that specific drug. And he just really opened my eyes about the whole thing. And I drove home feeling like I was on cloud 9. Like, I've never felt like that before. And I just remember getting home and like calling my mom and being like, I'm okay. Like, the craziest like spiritual experience just happened to me, and I don't really know what happened, and I don't know how to understand it. Like, but this happened. And I didn't sleep that night. I like stayed up until the sun came up, and I was just beaming with happiness. And it like felt, in my perspective, that was like my moment of like, I'm warning you right now. Like, you need to quit what you're doing. And I listened, and I never touched that drug again. And my life it's been very clear that God's been a part of my life ever since, even in my lowest moments.
Yeah.
So that was probably my biggest wake-up call that I've like ever had. And that was before rehab.
What was so we're gonna bridge the gap here to your experience, on TV as a super famous person.
Not famous.
But so eventually, if the timelines add up for me, the next few years were nothing but, far from a cakewalk, if you will. Like, you still had your challenges with addiction. And eventually there's a moment where you decide to move out of your house, right? And live in your car. How old are you at this point?
I want to say it was like the 20, 21 age.
Yeah.
Because I went to rehab right after, and then moved back in with my parents after rehab.
Yeah. The decision to leave, was that a decision that you that you willingly made,
To
or
rehab?
to leave your house and live in your car?
No.
Did you have a plan when you left?
That actually I was kicked out. So my parents just caught me by waking me up so many times, like on family vacations and in our like house, and I just in my room, and they warned me, and they told me if it happens again, then I'll be kicked out. And so I didn't care. And like they drug tested me, and I literally just didn't care. Like I knew I was going to be drug tested, and I still made the decision to do it. So that was that moment where my parents were like, I'm so sorry. And I bet that was so hard for them. Like knowing like that they were just letting me go off and to destroy my life. But they had no choice because it was starting to affect my family and my brothers and our relationships. And so they needed it gone. And that was a big, I mean, I wouldn't say it was a huge wake-up call because I just went out to do more. But when I realized I had no money and no friends and no family, that was when I was like, oh, well, I don't know what the heck I'm doing with my life right now. But I continued. And I think that's the part of addiction that was so scary. And that's why people like rob and steal and do those terrible things when they're high, is because they're just doing what they can to get the next thing.
It's crazy. It's you listen to that and you just go, how is that even possible? But unless you've experienced this level of addiction, you cannot understand it. That's the deal, right? It's like even your parents will probably never understand how easy it was for you to walk out and get in your car and just continue to use, right?
Oh, yeah. Think of it like a cartoon, like when a cartoon's hungry and there's like a pie that's smoking in front of them, it's like their eyes like roll back. It's like, it really is like that. Like you don't think of anything else. And it sucks because you hurt so many people.
Yeah.
Like I've got a very small circle now, and I'm grateful that they've stuck around.
Yeah. I also think there's, it's like one of your greatest fears as a parent is that your kid is going to do what you did. It really is, right? It's like I have 4 kids, 3 daughters. And I think about this. I'm like, what if one of them, statistically speaking, one of them could potentially do what you did? They could be addicts, or, I mean, there's all sorts of things that can go sideways, right? But also, if that is the case, you can't enable it. And one of the ways that they probably enabled it was just allowing you to be there, and probably still supporting you financially, and probably still, telling you it's going to be okay and whatever, right? But I think one of the best things that a parent can do at some point is to cut their child off. So, I mean, I can't imagine how hard that would be to have to do that to your own kid.
Oh, I can't. And they had to do it a few times, and it shows how much like love they had for me to let me come back. Yeah. And then it shows how much love they had for me to let me leave again.
Yeah.
And I know it was so hard, and I'm their first, and they took 9 years to get me. Like they tried to get pregnant for 7 years, tried to adopt for a few years. And so I know that I mean a lot to them. So I can't imagine what I put them through. And all I can do now is like just spend that extra time with them and make that up to them, because I can't go back. And I always like wish I could just go back and redo everything. But then I also wouldn't be where I'm at now today.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been able to do American Idol if I hadn't gone through all of that and realize like what I really want in my life and the life I want to live.
Yeah. Do you believe that that was part of your just path? Like, do you think that this was supposed to happen the way that it did?
I mean, I bet God was like, okay, well, I had other plans for you. But I think it was like I lost my voice throughout that whole dark period. It was like, I want to say like 5 years of just living in heavy addiction. And I stopped singing. Like I didn't write, I didn't perform. Like I performed in church if people asked me to, but that's it. And I had a show like maybe once every other year. And I just stopped caring. And I feel like God literally took my voice away. Like I just stopped. And when I went to rehab, I got my voice back. And I felt like I had to lose my voice to appreciate what it is like to be able to sing and like share your gift with others, like through music. So I learned that in rehab, which I feel like was like a big turning point for me. And then I had my voice back until I, started smoking again. I lost it again. I had a polyp and it hemorrhaged actually.
Mm.
And when I quit smoking, my voice got worse and worse and worse until it randomly came back. And then American Idol called and my voice was healed enough to audition. And then I got the surgery after the show. So it carried me through the whole show. It just kind of felt like God planned everything perfectly.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have been able to appreciate the good without the bad. And I would have done the bad all over again to get the good because the good was so good.
Yeah. Thank you to our sponsors over at Bucked Up. I love this company. I love their products, their apparel, and their supplements. Recently, they dropped the mother of all pre-workouts, Mother Bucker. This is not for the faint of heart. This will make you want to claw your face off. So don't get stuck in traffic when you're headed to the gym. I love these guys. I love this company, and I love their products. They are clearly the best tasting pre-workout on the entire market, and they're number one for a reason. Bucked Up is my favorite workout brand, hands down. And they also have my favorite apparel for working out and just for daily life. It's Lululemon-like quality, but for a fraction of the price that's affordable. So head over to their site, buckedup.com, where you can check it out. And for 20% off their entire site, use the code TylerHall20. So I want to talk about your audition for American Idol. I watched it last night with my wife and kids, and all of us were crying as we were watching this. You probably know I'm a big baby. I love crying. It's amazing.
Men with emotions are so solid. They're just healing and healed in a way.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with it.
And we were watching this, and I had seen it before. I think your audition is one of the most probably seen or viral auditions in the history of the show because of because of all of it. Like you walk out there, you're just like this beautiful person, first of all. And you're like also very calm and like articulate and seemingly unfazed is what I witnessed when you went in there. I'm sure your heart was going
I was
crazy.
Sweating. If you look real close, you can see how bad I was sweating.
You just seem so like calm given the circumstances. Then you do your audition and it goes really well. And I can't remember if it was before or after, but you tell them that you are adopted and you're searching for your family, and and then you walk out to get your family and you realize who's there, right? Which is your birth grandmother, and I think it's your uncle and aunt and cousin, right?
My 2 aunts and uncle.
2 aunts and uncle.
Yeah.
Give us the play-by-play of that experience. Like maybe even leading up to American Idol, what is required even to get to that point? I think most people probably don't know, including myself. And then how did they orchestrate that whole thing? Like from your perspective, give us the play-by-play of this audition.
So I actually have to start in June because this is when I just find it crazy because throughout all of my addiction period, I didn't search for my birth mom or birth family once. Like my parents told me at 21, like in my audition, that my birth mom was a musician. She had passed away. And then at that moment, it was like free will to just start researching her. And I never did, which I find so interesting. I just never cared. I mean, I looked on Facebook and I thought I found the family, but it looked like they weren't active on Facebook. So I just stopped. And I didn't research them again until last June, before American Idol. And it was right when I got sober for like the last time. Like I quit nicotine, everything. And that next day, I like randomly just thought, oh, I'm going to watch videos of my birth mom on YouTube. And then I watched an interview she did. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to look that guy up and just see if I can send him a message and see if he knows anything. And it says in his bio, like, I do not answer DMs or read DMs. Send me a business inquiry. So I'm like, this is never going to work. But I sent him one anyways. And then I sent the same thing in the DMs just in case and went to bed because I was like, oh, this is whatever. And I woke up at 5 a.m. To like a bunch of messages like in my email and back from him saying like, McKenna, I have so many people who've been dying to hear from you. Like, let me give you their information. And then shortly after, I got an email from Lindy, which is my birth mom's sister. And it is just this whole email. And I'll end up reading it for if you want. But it basically just tells me that they've known who I was for like the last maybe 8 years, 7 years. And they've like wrote and rewrote emails to me and my mom separately and just haven't sent them because something was like telling them not to. And they just wanted to give me my space and privacy and wait for me to reach out to them when I was ready. They said they hired like a private investigator and that they said that they found me and it wasn't me, like just this whole thing. But they really did like DNA tests and everything to try to figure out who I was because they found a video of me on the internet. They knew my name was McKenna and they saw that I played the piano and sang at the piano, which is what my birth mom did. And they saw that I was adopted and they were like, no way. So for years that just like ate them alive and they couldn't say anything to me. So the timing was crazy and we set up a FaceTime that day and then planned to meet in November, like around Thanksgiving. And I wanted to audition for American Idol because they had been reaching out for like a few years just saying, hey, like, come audition. So after that, I finally was like, okay, I'm just going to audition. Like, I'm kind of on a high with the miracles here. Like, let's see what I can get. And I submitted my video and I immediately got a call back and they were like, okay, you're going to Nashville to audition. And I'm like, oh, my birth uncle lives in Nashville. That's cool. But like, I didn't think anything of it. And I auditioned and it turns out my family and my birth family had planned with the American Idol producers to all meet for my audition and surprise me. And my parents had never met them. And so this was all like a huge, crazy experience for everyone. My birth grandma also hadn't flown on a plane since she had taken my birth mom's ashes from Arizona to Wyoming. So I like never thought she would get on a plane ever. So when I like got there, I got there and I waited for 2 days to audition. And I was the last person to audition on like the second day of being there. So I was exhausted. So I think that's why I seemed like calm and collected, but I was exhausted and like drained. And I think that honestly helps with like the emotions for the show. And they really try to like wear you out. But when I opened those doors, like none of that was staged. Like I knew immediately who they were because of the FaceTimes we've been doing. And it just felt like I had met them before and like known and loved them my whole life. And I just started bawling. Like it felt like a family reunion. And then when Katy asked me to sing like one of my birth mom songs, like I don't know who else gets that opportunity. So it felt like my birth mom kind of like orchestrated the whole thing. for me in a way, but it was just like so amazing for everyone. And then I got to spend the whole day the next day. I played her piano at my uncle's house and just like got to know all of them on a different level. And we've taken so many trips together now. They've come to Arizona. I've gone to Wyoming to stay with my grandma. So it's just been like the biggest miracle. And they came to so many of my shows too. So
Oh, wow.
it's definitely been a high since I got rid of all of my junk from the past.
Yeah. There's so many things there, right? I think one of them is just you had no idea your mom was a musician, right?
No idea. Like, I
And
knew when I was 21, but
you
I
were
didn't
playing
care.
and singing before that.
Yeah, and I didn't like her music when I found it. Like, I actually hated it and was like, oh, she's not good. And my whole perspective on her changed like just a few years later.
Yeah.
But we did the exact same things. Like, she started playing by ear at like 5. I started playing by ear at 6. We have the same range. So like I can sing as high as she can and as low as she can. And then we just have the same mannerisms and we eat the same. We talk the same. It's pretty weird.
So for those who don't know, which I'm guessing there's a lot of people that don't know the whole story, what actually happened to your mom? This
is the craziest story. And there's actually a documentary on her, which I was able to find and watch after I found my birth family. It's called No More Man and a Whiskey Girl. And that was their band name. So my birth mom was diagnosed with lupus, like I think maybe 19 or 20 years old. And she performed and, struggled with things and struggled with smoking. And when she got pregnant with me, they told her to not go through with the pregnancy because it was like, could be life-threatening to her. And she did it anyways. So she kept me and kept the pregnancy going and found this guy named Derek Ross. And he loved her like so deeply, like regardless like of what she looked like with her lupus, because her body would change all the time. She would get super swollen or get super skinny, and then loved her through the pregnancy. And like he would have raised me, but he wasn't my birth dad. But they were just like a power couple and like the greatest like musicians ever. He played the guitar and wrote a lot of songs, and she wrote and played the piano and sang. And they toured all around Bisbee, Arizona. And I'll be going to play there in like a few weeks, which is so cool. But when she died, he went and bought a gun, and that same day shot himself. And so my birth family like lost both of them that day. And it was like this tragic, like horrible thing for everyone. But I've learned so much about him too. And I'm just grateful for both of them. And I know my life would have been so different if I wasn't adopted, and it would have been so hard not having 2 parents. But like I know I would have been raised in a beautiful family, and I'm so glad that they can be a part of my family now.
Yeah.
And I can like honor and cherish them. Like their 11 years was just a few days ago. So it's really cool now that I can like honor their memory.
Yeah, you're in a post that you wrote a couple of days ago on their 11 years, you said that 11 years ago today, heaven gained 2 of the most beautiful angels. I love you, Amy, and I love you, Derek. I felt you this morning, so beyond lucky that I got to sing your song on national TV. I can't wait for the day that I get to meet you again, Whiskey Girl.
That was her nickname.
I thought that was special.
I swear I'm going to name my daughter Whiskey or get like whiskey tattooed on me somewhere. But yeah, she's a great person. I love like learning more and more about her.
And you were her only child?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you have physical similarities?
Oh yeah. There's some pictures where I'm like, that's crazy. We look exactly alike. And some of the photos on American Idol I put side by side with hers. And I think there's a post somewhere in there, like one of my audition photos or performance photos Looks just like her face, her eye color, her hair. We have the same teeth, the same nose.
And your eye color's unique. I mean, it's, how would you describe it?
It's like hazel.
Yeah. Like a light hazel, almondy something.
Yeah, like sometimes
Very
it has
different.
some green in it.
Yeah.
But same exact eye color as her.
Yeah.
But I love getting to know her family too, because I get to know where I come from. I have so many similarities to them.
Yeah.
Like more than my family. So it's really cool to learn that.
Yeah. So what is, you watch these TV shows. I'm actually, ironically enough, right after this, I'm meeting with a close friend of mine who was The Bachelor a couple seasons ago.
No way.
Do you watch the show at all?
I do now. I just watched last season and now I'm watching Golden Bachelorette.
Okay. So
I'm loving it.
his name's Clayton Eckerd. He was, I think, two seasons ago's Bachelor and was on The Bachelorette the season before that. And, so we've talked about like the Hollywood dynamic, right? Like what you see on TV is not actually what's happening there, right? So what are and I don't know if you're under strict confidentiality or anything with them,
nothing.
but like what would be one thing that people would be really surprised to know about what's really happening behind the scenes at American Idol?
So I've done America's Got Talent as well. And like the energy in the environment was completely different. I actually can say that American Idol treated us so well. Like most of the stuff that was on camera, like actually everything that was on camera was not staged and real.
Yeah.
But everything you don't see behind camera is like really draining and exhausting. Like we're up at 7 a.m, like at the latest every single day, sometimes 5:30, because we have to get ready, be camera ready before we get picked up by the bus, the hotel.
You're staying in a hotel the entire time
with roommates. No matter what, you're never alone. And then the food situation is like, sorry, American Idol, but like, oh my gosh, like we were starving. Like I think everyone is just like so skinny on the show, but like they give us Trader Joe's gift cards like once a week that weren't enough, and then we all hate Trader Joe's now, and it's just like I got sick all the time. But there's a lot of waiting around in these like rehearsal rooms, and just like a lot of vocal coaching going on and a lot of interviews, and that's really all it was. And then going back to the hotel like late at night, like 6, going to bed, waking up, doing the same thing. No days off. We probably had 3 days off the whole entire show.
Which is how long? How long does it last?
From all of the live shows, I want to say from like end of March until beginning of June. So 3 months.
Yeah.
But I would do it all again. It was like the best experience of my life. Coming off of it, I feel like they could do better with like the therapy of coming off of those shows, because you're exposed to so much in like a span of 6 months, when people are normally exposed to those things over like a span of like 10 to 15 years.
Like what?
Just like so many eyes on you and constantly, it's just like the fame, like the exposure of like what fame is like and living in Hollywood, and just everyone knowing who you are and going to restaurants and people taking pictures with you, and that high goes away. Like, and I actually talked to a lot of the American Idol contestants, and they're going through similar things. And what really kind of snapped me out of mine was talking to someone who was on The Voice, and he said that it took him 5 years after the show to get back into his music career, because he just went into a funk. So I feel like all of us kind of went into like a big depression, and I hit like my own new rock bottom once I got off the show. And it wasn't like I was sad that I was eliminated. It was just like, what do I do now? Like I don't have a million eyes on me, and I do have people asking me to perform, but I have surgery. So I'm turning down all of these gigs, and I'm just depressed and in addiction again, and praying to get out of it and coming out of it. And just, it's a total roller coaster, but what I found that's helped me is writing. So I've really started writing. Like I've got 2 songs that have to do with addiction and just like the roller coaster of life. So I'm excited to start releasing those. But if I wouldn't have been able to write, I feel like my depression would have honestly still been going on and I wouldn't be here right now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's got to be, in talking to Clayton about it as well. I think I've got a meeting. He's here, so you can meet him. I'll introduce you.
That's so cool.
He just talked about this. I think professional athletes experience this as well, right? Where when they retire, they have full blown identity crisis. Like,
yeah, or like injuries.
Oh my gosh,
like big injuries.
Yeah. Like all of a sudden you go from like seemingly everybody cares about you. The world knows you. You've got like access beyond belief to do things that normally you couldn't. And then all of a sudden, like all of that's taken away.
Yeah.
And you have to, I think you have to really go deep, intrinsically and just say like, wait a minute, that's not who I am. That show, American Idol, is not who McKenna is. Yeah. It's something you did, but it has nothing to do with your identity. So it's like working that out, I think, is really important.
That makes so much sense. And I have figured out my identity just within, like the last month of being able to sing and like talk again, because it was complete vocal rest. Like I couldn't cough, sneeze, like talk, nothing for a while. And I like even in therapy, she was like, that is not who you are. Like you're not McKenna, the American Idol singer, McKenna the singer. Like you're McKenna. And like whatever you do with your life, like you're still loved equally as much as you were before the show.
Yeah.
And so it really took me like several months to figure that out. And I don't know why that is, but I think just when you're exposed to so many opinions and so many people telling you that they love you, and my Instagram went from like 3,000 followers to like 160 and 1,000 in like a few months. So things that I didn't care about before, I care about now. And yeah, everything's changed, but life is like pretty normal again and it feels very good.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd even go so far as to say, again, not a therapist. So she knows better than I do, but even just the name, the physical name that we have, I think is not our identity. Like
so interesting.
I think it's temporary probably, and I think that you can start to, the name Tyler Hall, you can start to like attach to that when you start being known. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, that's who I am. Like I'm Tyler Hall. And it's like, and what does that mean? Like what's actually in there? Not like what people are telling you are, or how people know McKenna, which today is American Idol. It's like, no, it's not. It's not really who I am. So that's one to think about. So much sense.
No, I actually 100% agree on that. Like it's like it comes down to like looking in the mirror and just being like, I love you, like for who you are. Like I accept you for you, like no matter what you do. I love that though. Yeah, like you are not McKenna Faith Breinholt.
Yeah.
Like you're just you.
It's a nice name though.
Thank you. Thank you. I love my middle name. Like it just says a lot about the things that I've gone through in my life. And I just feel like you can't do hard things without having faith in God.
Yeah. I mean, this has been amazing. I think we could go forever. There's a lot more that we can talk about. Here's what I want to end with. So I like to do this on my podcast from time to time. So I want you to think about those who are out there that are in their teens and early 20s that are struggling with addiction. So I want you to think about those people, what they look like, what they're probably going through. what their families may be going through. And I want you to just share your best words of encouragement and advice to those people. And when you do it, I want you to actually stare into your camera right there.
If you are going through addiction and mental health struggles and loneliness and darkness, I just encourage you to reach out to people and trust that they will be understanding and love you regardless of what you're going through, and let them help you, and let them help you before it gets too bad and too hard to get out of it yourself. And when it does get bad, know that you do have the tools to be able to get out of it. And you have to have a belief that there is something greater than you that is the reason for this, and that would be able to pull you out of this and give you the strength to be able to do that, because you really can't do it yourself. And the people that you have hurt, go make amends with them and try to get them back in your lives, because the bigger of the circle of people that you have around you, the easier it is for you to stay on a good path and stay clean. So just be open and communicate, and just let people know what you're going through, and you'll realize that other people are going through similar things and that you can help each other.
Well, McKenna Faith, thank you for joining the Rollercoaster Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.